This is Goku-san, DBZ, and today is, well, we are in the last few days of this year, and last week was the last top 12 list for my Star Wars theme month. Even though it's still December, I am going to be today counting down my top 12 favorite movies of 2015. And there are also 2 honorable mentions and 2 dishonorable mentions. And these, of course, from my viewpoint of the movies I've seen personally. So there may be some really good movies that are on this list because I may have not seen them. So just keep that in mind. And sorry, it looks like having a little technical problem right now. Anywho, here it is. First, the 2 honorable mentions. And they are the holiday horror film Krampus and the newest M. Night Shyamalan film The Visit are both honorable mentions. Now the 2 dishonorable mentions. Actually, I'll save that for the end. Coming in at number 12. Starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the new disaster film San Andreas at number 12. And I honestly did not expect to like this film because I'm not a big fan of these disaster films. But San Andreas actually had a decent storyline to it and decent acting job. You don't always get that in the disaster films. Interesting characters and decent dialogue and acting is usually focused mainly on special effects. Yeah, some of the special effects aren't the greatest for it now for 2015, but I mean, for the most part, the special effects were good. And I actually enjoyed the characters in the movie. I thought that really helped the overall storyline and stuff. So it was a pleasant surprise. Coming in at number 11. Is a lot of people's picks for probably one of the worst movies of the year, but for me personally, I enjoyed the film. And that is Terminator Genisys. And some people are saying Genisys and stuff. I don't get it. I don't get the hatred towards it. I personally enjoyed Terminator Genisys. And I can't explain why. For the most part, I enjoyed it overall. I just did. And it was just it was kind of an interesting movie with, of course, a new timeline and everything introduced to the story arc. I guess see an older Terminator, but to begin, you see like the younger Terminator from Terminator 1 going at it with the older Terminator Arnold. It was kind of an interesting scene, I will say. One of probably the best parts of the movie. But I personally also enjoyed who they casted as Skynet. That being Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor from Doctor Who. And I very much enjoyed that. And I'm going to be biased on some things since I am a Doctor Who fan. But I'm pretty open-minded with the Terminator movies, though I did despise Salvation. And I was 50-50 with Rise of the Machines. I thought this movie was good. The special effects were decent, and yeah, I will admit some of the dialogue wasn't the best. Arnold, I think, was what made the movie shine. Was Arnold and the few scenes that he was in J.K. Simmons as detective. That was also pretty interesting. And again, to see like this new version Terminator, and of course at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, Arnold ends up getting an upgrade to a T-1000 style, which is kind of cool. Coming in at number 10. The blockbuster sensation Jurassic World. Yep, Jurassic World only made it to number 10 on my list. It was a very enjoyable movie for the most part. And I just heavily, really got into that film. I just really, sincerely enjoyed it. And I can't wait I really hope, the next Jurassic World is decent. It doesn't end up like yeah, it's not the best in the series, of course. Uh, Jurassic Park is the best, but Jurassic World was cool. You get to see, like, some flashback things. I guess the nostalgia factor for me. And Jurassic Park is one of my all-time favorite movies. Jurassic World, I still very much enjoyed. It slowly dropped some in the rank. Originally, it was probably would have been like number 6 or 7 favorite of the year, but other movies came up that knocked it down the ranks. But I enjoyed it for the most part, and the CG was good. And it really was the sequel I had waited for. Because Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 were just bad. Coming in at number 9. The final installment to the Hunger Games franchise, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, comes in at number 9. And I very much enjoyed this last Hunger Games movie. Not as much as Catching Fire, which is probably my favorite. And I personally, unlike some people, I really enjoyed Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. It may be my second favorite of the 4 movies, but I've really enjoyed Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2, I guess because there was a huge, like, big final explosion or war and stuff at the very end, like most Hollywood movies. It chose instead to be more loyal to the actual novel, source material, which I actually applaud it for that. Because you don't see that too much in Hollywood, to actually be more loyal to source material rather than going with the big money, like, blockbuster type thing. And yeah, the movie has made it to $600 million at the box office, so by no means it's a failure. It just hasn't made as much money as the other films. Like, for instance, Catching Fire did like $800-some million. By far the most successful of the series also. But yeah, I actually enjoyed Mockingjay Part 2. Coming in at number 8. The third chapter of the Insidious series. Originally, Insidious 1 and Chapter 2 were both, of course, directed by James Wan. He was just executive producer on the third one, which was a prequel. And let's be honest, I was very worried about Insidious Chapter 2 because of the prequel movie to the really successful smash hit James Wan did called The Conjuring, and that being, of course, Annabelle, which was bad, just really bad. So I was kind of worried with Insidious, though I enjoyed the trailers and stuff. But surprisingly, in the end, I actually really enjoyed Insidious Chapter 3. I was just sad I didn't get to see but just a tiny little, like, thing at the end of the movie with the, what I call the Darth Maul demon from the first Insidious. I personally really thought it was a good film, and the one who plays, one of the main characters in it, who is the medium and stuff that contacts spirits, she was by far the best performance in the movie. There was the flaws here and there, but it was a really solid horror movie overall. And it had to have more scary moments than Insidious Chapter 2 did. But Insidious Chapter 2 had better storytelling, I thought, for the most part. But my favorite is and will always be the first Insidious. It just blew me away how amazing and great that movie was. But I've really enjoyed the entire Insidious trilogy. My favorite horror movie trilogy, hands down. And I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed Insidious Chapter 3. I'm just pleased that at least it didn't go to crap like some other stuff James Wan has done. Coming in at number 7 was a movie originally that I ridiculously high expectations on, and it kind of, at first I felt that it kind of failed my expectations for the most part, but I still very much enjoy it, and the second time I watched it, I actually liked it more than the first time. And it's produced my favorite villain so far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Most people say Loki. I say Ultron. So number 7 is Avengers Age of Ultron. And yes, as I said, I very much enjoyed this movie. Otherwise, it would have made it to number 7. But, yeah, Ultron to me was my favorite part of the second Avengers movie. And I did find interesting, of all characters that they killed off in the movie, they killed off Quicksilver, because, you know, the way they were, like, doing the story and stuff in the movie, I felt like they were going to kill off Hawkeye, which was interesting. They didn't. And we'll see if they keep Quicksilver dead, because right now, really, there's no real feeling of, like, loss and stuff in the cinematic universe, because almost everybody who dies doesn't really end up dying. So they need to keep Quicksilver dead to really feel like there is an official feeling of loss, that people can die in the cinematic universe, because the Spider-Man universe and the X-Men universe, people do die. Of course, the whole reboot thing with Days of Future Past undid all the pretty much death in the X-Men series. So I guess the only one that really people stay dead in is the Spider-Man universe. Or at least was. We'll see with the join the cinematic universe now, whether or not that stays or does not stay. Coming in at number 6 is the new 007 James Bond film, Spectre. Now, I will say, I did have a few issues with Spectre, like in some areas with some slow pacing and stuff. Was really the main issue I had. For me, I didn't like it where the main villain of the movie was only in really a few scenes here and there. I think on average maybe 3 scenes total in the movie, and that's not good for a James Bond villain. Instead, the secondary villain was the one who got more screen time, and of course that was played by one of my personal favorite of all time professional wrestlers, David Batista, which of course I loved last year as Drax the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy. And now, he plays this bad guy going after Bond in the new Spectre film. And I really enjoyed it, especially that train scene involving him and stuff. In general, the part where they're on the train in Spectre is perhaps my favorite part of the movie. It was just very enjoyable. And it did have a lot of political ulterior motive and stuff in the film. I will say that, because involving like spying on people, like reading everyone's information, and they combine into like a worldwide database located in London to gather all the world's people's personal information stuff, spying. So yeah, it does have a political message and stuff where Bond and them end up blowing up. Like, I guess you could say like Homeland Security, like at like a worldwide version of it, ends up Bond blows that building up. So yeah, it does have very strong political message in the film, but I still enjoyed the film. Coming in at number 5 is a film I really did not expect to enjoy, let alone be one of my top 5 favorites. Number 5 is the new Tom Cruise film, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. This was a good year, I will say, for spy films. And I very much enjoyed Rogue Nation. Tom Cruise was really good in it. And I think one of the other best things about Rogue Nation, also, I very much enjoyed Alec Baldwin in it. He was really good. And he played a really good politician in the role he was in. And, of course, the guy who plays Hawkeye in the Avengers in the Marvel Cinematic Universe also was a high-ranking person in the movie as well. So that was really cool. They had a really good cast in the new... It's one of the few times I will say I think I actually enjoyed Mission Impossible more than a James Bond film. And trust me, it's a rarity. Coming in at number 4 from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that is the film Ant-Man I did not expect to love Ant-Man, like it more than Age of Ultron, but Ant-Man is now, for a standalone film, of the Earth and stuff, cinematic universe, hands down my 3 favorite standalone films. Well, if you could consider Guardians of the Galaxy a standalone film, that is. If you don't consider Guardians of the Galaxy a standalone film, then the top 2, hands down, standalone films are the first Iron Man and Ant-Man. I just really enjoyed Ant-Man, and Michael Douglas stole every scene he was in that movie. He was just awesome. Of course, we all know Michael Douglas is a good actor, to be fair. He is one of my favorite actors. And so it was nice. And I thought he did a really good job playing the mentor figure in the film. And the villain, I felt sort of like a Lex Luthor type villain. And they did decent for actually explaining really the origin stuff of this character, unlike some villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which don't really have a backstory and don't really have any development. But at least to give a little backstory on this particular guy, you kind of understand where he's coming from, why he is the way he is. Coming in at number 3 is a film I did not know about until thanks to listening to Collider Movie Talk on YouTube, which I listen to 5 days a week, get the latest movie news. They mentioned about a small indie science fiction film, and I ended up deciding to get it, and I watched it, and I fell in love with it. Every time I watch this movie, it gets better, like a wine. It gets better with time. And it's an incredible film. It predominantly revolves around only 3 characters, 3 actors in the whole movie. Well, 2 actors and an actress. And Oscar Isaac is one of the 3 in this film. And if you're wondering who Oscar Isaac is, he's the one who plays Kylo Ren in the new Star Wars film, and he's also going to be Apocalypse in next year's X-Men Apocalypse film. So, yeah, he's doing pretty good right now. But this film is incredible. It's an indie science fiction film called Ex Machina. Love Ex Machina. I was not expecting. You see, I'm not the biggest person to actually watch indie films, but between watching last year Birdman and watching Ex Machina this year, I will say I'm going to start paying more attention to indie films. If any get released in any of the 3 theaters in the area where I live, I will be going to theater to watch any indie film I get the chance to watch, because Ex Machina was just incredible. For a short time in there, it was my number 1 favorite movie of the year for a little while, until really November and this month, which 2 movies dethroned it. Coming in at number 2, the movie starring Matt Damon, again as an astronaut. An incredible film based on, of course, a well-known novel. Number 2 is The Martian. And I did not expect The Martian to be super good. I mean, because the trailers, you really couldn't understand whether or not, and given the director who did Martian hasn't done the best movies in the last several years, so I wasn't sure what to expect, and I did not expect such a great movie, because between 50 to probably 60% of the movie, it's only Matt Damon. So it very much highly revolves around his acting premises, acting ability. And he really does shine in the role. And the movie is really interesting, fascinating. And of course, it's a movie not for people that with short attention spans, because it is like close to a 3-hour movie like Interstellar was. So, you have to keep that in mind. But it's a really good film. If you enjoy a really good traditional science fiction type film, The Martian is definitely a film for you, and if you want to see a film that's a loyal film to a novel adaptation, The Martian is also for you. The Martian is just a top-notch science fiction film, perhaps one of the 5 best science fiction films I've seen in the past 5 or 6 years. I just very much enjoyed this film. I did not expect to like it as much as I did. And it was my #1 favorite film for the year up until about 1 week ago. It was my #1 favorite film. Before I mention #1, here's 2 dishonorable mentions. First is a sequel that the first film I really loved, and the sequel is just really bad, to say the least. And that being Sinister 2. Was dreadful, awful, crap. I just didn't like what they did with the sequel, Sinister 2, because Sinister 1 was just a really well done movie. And number 2 is, I feel, the #1 worst movie of the year. The Craptastic Four, or Fantastic Four. I say Craptastic Four. As bad as people thought the cheesy movies from the 2000s were, trust me, they are 10 times better than this film. This was just bad, bad, bad. I could go on a long rant about this film. I'll just say that much. I really, really hate Fantastic Four movie. Worst, probably comic book movie I've seen in quite a long time. I will say that. It feels like a comic book movie from the 90s. That's how bad it is. Though we did have a couple of good comic book movies in the 90s, to be fair. Like X-Men 1 and Blade. And Crow were 3 really good. And then all the rest in the 90s were all bad. #1. #1 best movie of the year, at least in my opinion. Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, as I mentioned, Age of Ultron was a disappointment to me. So I was worried about Star Wars because I had my expectations this high. Just like Age of Ultron. And Ultron kind of disappointed me. Yet the funny thing is, Star Wars did not disappoint me at all. That was the surpriser. So, I like the Kylo Ren character, as I think I've mentioned before. Kylo Ren character is a multi-layered character, and he's not a rip-off of Darth Vader, which I was afraid of, that he would be. But no, he has multiple layers. He has a very more interesting character, really, than you would have first thought of when you first see him. He's much different than you were expecting, and he's still struggling with the light side of the Force. He's trying to resist the light side like others try to resist the dark side. And he's going to be a much more, I think, powerful, more evil character in the next film. Since, let's just say, the end of the movie doesn't go too well for the character Kylo Ren, so Supreme Leader Snoke says to bring Kylo Ren to him and it's time to finish his training. And, spoiler alert, there's only about 30 seconds in the entire movie with Luke Skywalker, and that's the last 30 seconds of the film, but it is so awesome, and the way they set it up is Luke is going to be really one of the main characters of Episode 8. That's pretty obvious now. But, as I said before, I really love the performances by John Boyega as Finn and Daisy Ridley as Rey. Incredible performances. I just love this movie. I've already now seen it 3 times in theater. 3 times. And New Year's Day I'm going to be seeing it a 4th time. It'll be tied for being one of only 3 movies I've ever seen 4 times in movie theater. That's it. Currently only 2 movies I've seen 4 times. And those are both pretty awesome films. Guardians of the Galaxy and Lion King. And, yep, that's #1. And this was my top 12 list for top 12 best movies of 2015. I hope you enjoyed this top 12. And, of course, stay tuned for top 12 next Sunday. And I will begin ready, hopefully, in the next day, doing comic book review, of course, for Vader issue... I believe it's Darth Vader issue 9, or it's issue 10, I believe. And Star Wars issue 10. So stay tuned for those special reviews. As always, follow me at GokuSunDBZ.com. GokuSunDBZ. Twitter.com/GokuSunDBZ. I'm still like half asleep right now. It's only like just after 7 a.m. right now here, Eastern Time. So yeah. And I hope all of you out there had a good holiday season. And I hope everyone has a good upcoming New Year. As well as, of course, you can follow me at Google+. And also, I hope to those in Canada, if anybody in Canada is watching, I hope you all have a good... I hope you all had a good Boxing Day yesterday. Peace out. And I thought I'd quickly mention what next Top 12 Sunday is going to be. Next Top 12 Sunday is going to be a special Top 12 list. It's going to be a music Top 12 list. Next Sunday is going to be a countdown of the top 12 metal songs of the 2010s. And now these will be my personal picks, so keep that in mind. So stay tuned for that next Sunday, the top 12 metal songs from 2010 to 2015. And I hope you all have a good upcoming 2016.